Hello, my name is Selly Raby Kane. I'm a fashion designer and artist from Dakar, Senegal. I am very happy to be here on this platform and to contribute into the curricula or into sharing what is made here on the continent. So I've been a fashion designer for a very long time now, uh, officially 10 years and unofficially something like 13 years. And I started by studying things that had nothing to do with fashion. I started by studying, I went to prep school in letters. And after prep school, I started what we call in the French system license. 3 years, the three first years of university are called license. So I started a license in economics. And after that, I started a master's degree in private law. So that's the route that I chose to take because I was very interested into political science and I wanted after my master's to orient myself into another master's that will introduce me to political science. And let's say that after my first year of master's that I was studying abroad in France, because the French system and the Senegalese system are very linked. So after the first year of studying my master's, I just realized that the creativity that I have always had as a child was still here and it was knocking harder than it used to. So it was a year where I didn't really feel myself working in a law field or working in political science anymore. I wasn't seeing myself there at all. So I took 1 year hiatus. I took 1 year for myself. And during that year, I came back to Senegal. And I started to look around and to look at the creative in relation that was happening in the city, and I was really amazed by what was happening creatively in Dakar and in Senegal. So I had by that time I had already created the collection very spontaneously a year before. I always used to draw things, and the year before I decided to take a year for myself. I drew a lot of garments, came in Senegal in vacation with those garments and decided to create the pieces and to have a show. It went really, really well. So after that show, I went to my master's in law. So after the master's in law and after half a year in it and realizing that I wanted something more creative that was more suited to how I saw life, I took that year that I was speaking about earlier, and with in mind the fact that we were able to make a collection, to create it and to show it, to produce a show, thanks to the help of many people that were here and engaged in this crazy adventure. So that happened. The year in Dakar just opened up my eyes on many things. The first thing is that I wasn't stuck in the career path. I wasn't stuck in a choice of studies, that everything regarding those choices is really dynamic and it really needed to resonate with my vision of the life that I wanted to have. And we can have all the pressure that we know many African families can put on their children regarding studies. But there is also something to be firm on, is to be firm on what you are supposed to do, what you are talented in, and to explore those possibilities fully. So I took that year to just see where the Young Designers Contests were, to see where the opportunities were, where the internships were. So I took one internship to a designer that inspires me and was huge at the time here in Senegal, and she's one of my mentors still. I took that internship to just understand how the pattern making worked in her studio, how she was approaching the creation of textiles from the cotton fiber to the cloth, and what was how she was organizing herself, being the one that creates the textiles and the one that creates the garments, which are very different fields if you look at it closely. So I've gathered a lot of experience in Senegal. I did at least 3 contests that year, and it gave me a lot of visibility. So after that, I chose to go back to France, but now to study fashion and business, because I just knew that I was in an environment that was bursting with creativity, but it was an environment where you were supposed to be a creative entrepreneur, and I couldn't just come back and only be a designer and leave the business aspects to someone else. I think I knew that I wanted to be hands-on, that I had to be hands-on, and I had to have an atelier and to handle the production side of things as well. So I went back around 2009 and did another master's in the chef de produit. It's product manager for fashion and textile industry. And I did that for 2 years. And each year I was coming back and having a fashion show in Senegal, coming back 3 months, handling the brand, and then going back to my studies. So that back and forth happened until I graduated in 2011. And 2011, I came back straight to Dakar because I knew that what was happening in my city was something special. It was a very specific moment in its creative cycle. And you had all those alternatives that were just popping up. You felt that the city has had so many new profiles, radical profiles in music, in fashion installation, in writing, in dance. So I wanted to be there, and I wanted the DNA of the brand to be nourished by that energy. So 2011, early 2012, I officially installed the brand in Senegal, opened up all the accounts that are needed, created a small atelier with employees, buying the machines, really installing myself here in Senegal. And I think that was the right choice for me because it gave me a lot of experience. And the second thing was that I decided to work with an agency, a PR agency named the PR, and she handled the presence of the brand outside of Senegal and outside of the continent. And I think that second choice as well was an important one for the story of the brand, because it gave us visibility beyond the borders of the country. So that's how in 2012 we started gaining a lot of visibility from fashion magazine, from Vogue magazine, from One magazine, and so on and so on and so on. And it was a really great experience to just have the opportunity to be present in 2 territories. And it was, I think, important to just, from the get-go, deliver the message that we were, excuse me, sorry. And it was important from the get-go to deliver the message that we were willing to talk to the world. So I think one of the best encouragements was to be published in Vogue in 2012 when we created the first official collections. There have been 3 collections before that, but it was before everything was settled. So that would be the first success. And after that, I think 2 years later, we had a big show because we had a tradition in Senegal, in Dakar, was to create fashion shows that were really immersive. And not immersive with the bias of technology, but immersive in the fact that when you came into the shows, you entered a story, you entered the story of the collection. There were installations that were made with young artists from the city. For example, the one very memorable show that we made was in 2014, Alien Cartoon, and we took a train station, a very old train station. We rehabilitated slightly. We did what we could and installed the fashion show inside of that train station. And the theme of the fashion show was a foreign and alien invasion of the car and the consequences, the positive consequences that it had on fashion, on music, on architecture, etc. So we just transformed the train station into an alien village, and that was thanks to the collective energy and the many artists that were part of the adventure. Some were handling the costumes of the actors that had to give life to that ecosystem. The others were handling the physical installations. We had giant insects, giant octopuses, very dramatic lighting, etc., etc. So it was a superb collective experience, and I think that's a crucial moment in the story of the brand, because from that moment it became possible now to start working on films for costumes, because the collection was very narrative. It was very, very, very creative. So from that moment, it permitted to branch out now from fashion and to have pieces of the collection going in museum, to collaborate with the MoMA, or to have collections going to the Guggenheim, and to start as well speaking about why fashion was important here in Dakar, and why it was informing. It was a type of archive informing about the city at that time, and that's where my team was working on the product, and myself as a designer started to travel a bit more to talk about my work and to share the experience that I had in fashion in Dakar. So 2015, I went to the Design Indaba conference in South Africa to really start speaking about the creative energy that is present in our cities, and how that creative energy has generated a sort of ecosystem of solidarity still in an economical point of view, but that the fact that you function in collective in a very specific way gives the opportunity to many other brands and to many other artists to just have the necessary basis to move forward, because sometimes you just live in the city, in the country, and there are many sectors that are missing in the chain in fashion for you to be able to have a smooth development. But the presence of other designers, other brands that have built before the smaller brands have a tradition of just giving a hand in some specific way. So that's how as well that I've been working in many collectives, many art and fashion collectives as well. That it was important to just create another system of sharing knowledge, of sharing experience, and sharing it actively. If you want to, excuse me one second. And yes, I think it leads me to why education in the field of fashion, why it is so important. I can give you a superb example. In Dakar, there is a place named Dakar Design Hub that has opened, I think, a year ago, and it was founded by designer Sophie Singa, who has always been a visionary in terms of knowledge sharing, capacity building, and just making sure that the ecosystem that we are in, the fashion ecosystem that we have, is left better after our generation moves on. And she realized what we were all living as fashion designers, that there is learning that needs to happen, and learning that is more adapted to the modern way of approaching the fashion business. Because Senegalese has a history of fashion and embroidery and textile, etc. But when it comes now to create at the bigger scale, it becomes more difficult. So she created that hub, and I think it was very inspiring to see that a designer takes the leap to create a center for knowledge, a center for knowledge that is strictly oriented in fashion and fashion business. And I think it's primordial if we want to just create an ecosystem in which the brands can flourish and not have to produce elsewhere or import knowledge to elsewhere. Just having the having the people that we need to make sure that this industry can be the best it can be for the future, for today and for the future brands to arrive. So that is, I think, education in fashion is key, and an education that is also centered in the reality of the African cities we live in. There are many things that are specific to our territories, so that needs to be included as well in the curriculum. So that's what I'm also will work on in collaboration with Sopizinga. But yes, I think it's the journey in fashion in Senegal has sorry. So the journey in fashion in Senegal has just brought a lot of experience and brought a lot of it was an education in itself, but I think it would have been even better if from the get-go there was an educational system that was built towards producing here in Senegal, selling in Senegal, and then selling throughout the world. And I think what I hope for aspiring fashion designers, aspiring brands, is to really not hesitate to launch yourself and not hesitate to propose your creative universe and your take on what a garment should be to the world, but also make sure that you integrate into the way you function, that you integrate elements that will help you survive on the long run. And that centers a lot about knowledge. It centers a lot about hiring the good people, having the good people around you that understand your language and understand the language of your brand and are able to translate it into the best qualities of medium possible. And just focus as well on the heritage that we have in all the African countries. I think there are many sources of knowledge in textile, sources of knowledge on just history, culture. There are many tools that we can learn from in the many cultures that we have and infuse that into our fashion brands. I think that would be the most useful for our generation of designers and the other generation coming. And yes, I think it's a way to archive as well who we are in our own terms, and I think that's something that is very important for African creatives. Yes, and regarding opportunities and regarding conferences, events, anything related to fashion, I think there are really interesting opportunities that are happening in Senegal. There are things that are happening in Rwanda. The Dakar Design Hub has a lot of has people coming for conferences, people coming for talks. So it's important to just take those addresses and address emails when you're interested in a program or interested into learning in these spaces such as those. They have cyclical, cyclical formations. For example, the Data Design Hub is hosting, I think, pattern makers from the US this summer, and these informations are in their websites and their Instagram platform. So it's important to just keep up with specific spaces that you hear of, or specific spaces that exist in that you can see online, etc. But just keep up with their programmation, because things are really happening. And I know what is happening more in Dakar Design Hub, because that's the it's in my city. But I think that when I learned the most was when I was attending conferences and keeping up with the calendar of where knowledge was shared regarding what I was learning or regarding my research. So there is also an effort of going through the information, because yes, it's there is an effort of going through the information. I believe it's fashion is a very fascinating field, a very fascinating one. Fashion led us to virtual reality as a brand. It led us to filmmaking, to costume making. It led us to go to Mbeubeuss Festival, to the Cannes Festival, to Tribeca Festival. It led us to guest celebrities such as Beyonce, such as Ruby, such as many people. So I believe fashion is a true human, and is a true collective adventure, and it will bring you a lot of joy, but it requires a lot of discipline as well. So there is I think there is something very beautiful experientially, and the way to make it better is really to start with the most advantages on your side. And something that is key, if you are to handle your own production, confection, and atelier, etc., is to hire people that went to school, that know the rules of garment making, because with the people who have that knowledge, you'll be able to scale faster. You'll be able to build something that is more sustainable, and it will relieve you from having to be hands-on on that part and really focus on your creativity, because today the biggest and the most important thing right now is what you have to say to the world, and what your voice is, and what is your perspective on life, what is your perspective on humanity, and all of that can be encapsulated in the garment and in the words you use to present your collections. So fashion is very important, and fashion is responsible as well for many things that are happening in the world in terms of ecology. So all of that is important to integrate into the mindset of building a brand, and be radical, be original, express your own authentic voice. I think that will be the words that I give to you. That's what I've done, and so far it led me to just explore more and more mediums, because the core of the creativity was authentic. Thank you so much.